Welcome to Exploring Santa Cruz, a bi-weekly program on KSQD. I'm your host, Matilda Rand, and my guests are Lauren Weston and Jennie Dusheck. Lauren will be on Clean Feet, and Jennie's here with me in the studio. Our topic is fighting climate change, one house at a time. Jennie Dusheck is a career science writer who has written about science for the journals Science and Nature, as well as for Natural History magazine, Stanford Medicine magazine, and other outlets. She also wrote a piece about how to survive a landslide for the San Lorenzo Valley Post. Lauren Weston is the executive director of Actera, Action for a Healthy Planet, which serves the Bay Area through climate change solutions. Lauren is a trained climate reality project leader and is a senior fellow for the nationwide Environmental Leadership Program. She also converted her home to all electric. Welcome, Jennie and Lauren. So tell me, both of you, maybe start with Jennie. How did you get involved with climate action and electrification?
I'm a lifelong science writer with a background in ecology and evolutionary biology. It was really always obvious to me that climate change was a threat to all life on Earth. But by 10 years ago, it was becoming clear that nothing was really getting done. So I decided to prioritize climate change in my own life. I owned an old duplex rental in the Seabright, and I wanted to remove the gas heaters, which seemed dangerous, and insulate the attic. I hired an electrician to install mini split heat pumps to replace the 1950s gas heaters. He was a great guy and who had just finished a program of study at Cabrillo on electrification. He suggested further changes, an electric water heater and solar panels. He did a good job, and before I knew it, I had a net zero rental. So to my knowledge, it's the only one in town. So that's how I got started.
Thank you. And Lauren, how about you?
Jennie, I love hearing personal stories like that. I am relatively new to the climate space. Before coming to Actera, I worked in youth services and education, and I'm a first-time executive director with a very steep learning curve. I've been with Actera for 4.5 years now and have officially fully drunk the Kool-Aid, as they say. I've spent the last couple of years electrifying my home, partially because I wanted to be able to say, I did this thing that's so important, and partially because now I fully understand why it is so important. It was the kind of twofold of wanting to make a better life for my daughters and knowing as a leader of an organization dedicated to solutions, I needed to know what those solutions were firsthand.
Thank you. Jennie, why don't you first start with giving us a bigger picture about why electrification?
I just want to make a few points. One issue is that methane is a major source of global warming. Mm-hmm. And so when you electrify, you get away from methane. And I could talk about that at length, but I'll try to keep it short. Mm-hmm. The other thing that comes up a lot of the times is people will say, well, you're asking me to do personal change when really the problem is systemic, which is totally true. The problem is systemic, but there are opportunities for us to act on a personal level and make a difference. So recently, the Biden administration has addressed methane warming.
Tell us a little bit more, because not everybody may know methane.
Methane is the same thing as natural gas that you get in your house. It's been heavily advertised by the gas industry, at least since the 20s. Now you're cooking with gas is an advertising thing from the 1920s and 30s. So it's not like it just came out of nowhere. So it's a major global warming gas. So it's way more than carbon dioxide. So there's systemic change and individual action, and the Biden administration has addressed methane warming in two ways. They're charging the fossil fuel industry for methane emissions, which is systemic change, and they're providing incentives for the nation to electrify and get off natural gas through rebates and tax credits from the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, which is a climate bill. It's absolutely a climate bill. So they did their part, and now it's our turn. The ball is in our court, and it's up to us to use those incentives or not, but start electrifying our houses to the extent that we can. As we individually stop using gas, that means fewer gas pipelines and appliances leaking methane, and it really makes a difference. So that's what I wanted to get up there at the top.
So that means that if we stop using gas in our homes, then you have fewer gas pipelines.
Right.
And then also, I think you mentioned to me before that the appliances actually leak methane, right?
Appliances leak methane. They also leak other toxins, which I can get back to later. But whether you're burning the gas or not, there are a lot of pollutants that come into your house, especially from your stove, but also from other appliances to some extent. They tend to be vented. So you might have a gas water heater or a gas furnace in your basement or your garage. And if they're well vented, they might not pollute your indoors, but your stove, it's going to pollute the inside of your house.
Two important distinctions to make about the pipeline issue. In new construction, we can build all electric, so there's no pipelines to begin with. But if we're refurbishing homes that are already built and moving to electric, we need to make sure that we go fully electric and then cap the gas so that there is no gas going to those pipes anymore. It's not like the PG&E infrastructure is going to be removed from outside of your home, or they're going to come in and take the pipes away, but they'll cap the gas, and that's a critical component.
Give us a little bit more detail about how you electrified your rental.
I think I mentioned I wanted to get rid of this gas furnace. It was there are two of them, and because it's a duplex, and each side had a box in the living room that was open flame, fumes. It was dangerous. If you got too close to it, you could burn yourself. So I wanted to get rid of that. And I also wanted to insulate because I knew that was important to reducing the overall energy consumption of the building. I ended up hiring this electrician who had just finished this program at Cabrillo College on electrification. And he was so enthusiastic. He basically talked me into all these things. So I got heat pumps one for each side. I got an electric water heater, insulated the attic. And then he was like, how about solar panels? And I was like, let's do it. So I have to hand him a lot of the credit, but I was really at a point in my life where I really felt like that was important.
And did it have any impact on what you're going to do with your own house?
Yeah, my house is a lot harder. And that's part of the problem with retrofitting is like some places are easy to do and others are hard. And that's been a lesson for me. I do want to say one last thing about the rental is that because of the solar, the overall electrical bill and gas bill as well, there's only gas in the stoves at this point. It's less than $150 a year for two families.
$150 a year?
A year, yeah.
Most people have that bill in 1 month or more.
This is a retrofit, so I do recommend that people think about it.
Yeah. What about you, Lauren?
My electrification process was compelled probably by being in the climate space and wanting to walk the talk. I have done heat pump technology both for my water heater and my HVAC. I have induction cooktop range for cooking. I've got a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle. I've got a charger. I've done the whole gamut for our home. We've got a 2,600 square foot home. I've sized everything off of a 200 amp panel. So we've been lucky that we have a large enough panel to do all of this, because that's one of the concerns, right, is making sure you can do electrification efforts on the panel without an upgrade. One of the things that we'll touch on later is rebates, because there are rebates right now for panel upgrades if you need one. But my process started and snowballed, and it was a very quick process, thankfully, from beginning to end, because we were prepared for it and had been saving for it for quite some time. So I feel grateful to have been able to do that. And a lot of the things that we use for Actera are photos of my daughter and I cooking on induction, which is the photo that we used for this today. So I get to use my children and their level of excitement around cooking to show how easy and safe induction is. It's been a wonderful experience, and I really hope that the programs at Actera can compel others to make changes, to feel like they've got the education and the information needed to make decisions for their households.
Mm-hmm. Is it clear now to everyone that electrifying your home has something to do with climate change? Is there anything else to add to that?
I'm not sure if I had anything to add to that, but I think listening to what Lauren said about the panel, I have an anecdote. My rental had been under management, and it turned out that the management company had rented to a pot grower, and he had put up a big building in the backyard of this duplex, and the rental manager kept nagging me to upgrade the panel. And I was like, why? It doesn't need it. It's fine. And he just kept nagging me until I finally said yes. So he upgraded the panel to supply the pot grower all the energy he needed to grow pot. And when I found out, I got rid of them both. But I had an upgraded panel.
So you're ready for anything.
To answer the question about if folks really understand the connection, I think there is still a tremendous amount of denial. I think there's also a tremendous amount of digging in heels, whether someone is in denial or not. And then I think there is this huge upswell of people who understand completely why this is so necessary. And maybe some of the barriers are just the ability to afford these changes in their households, which is where these rebates and incentives come in and why they're so important right now. And those are the folks that we're really trying to reach, are the ones that are ready and hungry for change, knowing how positive the impacts can be. And then hopefully enough of those people make the changes that it offsets the downside for others that are not able to, or that are the ones digging in their heels. So I do think there is this upswell and energy and movement around electrifying. It's become more common, but it's still not anywhere where Actera would wanting it to be. We want every household and every business to be fully electric, and that's a long ways off still.
I agree with Lauren. I think so many people either can't do anything or they don't know where to begin. Mm-hmm. And making that jump is hard. Mm-hmm. But some people, like if you have the capacity to do it, or if you think you might, look into it.
Well, and Actera has programs for this very reason, right? We do workshops and a lot of community engagement and awareness building so that we hope to reduce those barriers, right? Information for 99% of our programs is free because we're grant funded. We have funders supporting our ability to do public education. We want there to be easy access to this information. And that is the bulk of what we do in our communities of service, is providing information so that people feel prepared to make changes.
Great. So let me first remind people that they're listening to Exploring Santa Cruz on KSQD. My name is Matilda Rand, and my guests are Jennie Dusheck and Lauren Weston. Our topic is fighting climate change, one house at a time. We just reviewed a little bit why we want to electrify. We also asked both Lauren and Jennie their personal experiences in electrifying their homes. And we talked a little bit about methane and how disastrous that is for the climate. Let's now look a little bit more into details and talk about how people can electrify their home. What is involved? You want to start, Jennie?
I think for a lot of people, it's not something you're going to do all at once unless you're extremely wealthy, but you're going to do it in stages. And so the first thing to ask yourself is, like, in what order should I do things? And for a lot of people, the best choice they can make is a heat pump water heater. Uh-huh. And that's because on the Central Coast especially, if you have a gas water heater, that's probably using more gas than anything else in your home. If you live in the mountains or in Missouri, it might, or maybe I should say Montana, it would probably be the furnace. But in our area, it's the water heater. Mm-hmm. And if you currently have a gas water heater in a garage, it's so easy to just switch that out to a heat pump water heater. Mm-hmm. So that's where I would recommend most people start if they're going in stages. But there's other things you can do.
I think that's a great point, right? I think if you can start with the lowest hanging fruit and then move on to the next thing, it's all this advice we're given on paying off debt, right? You do the smallest thing and then snowball it into the next thing and snowball into the next thing. Electrifying your home is very similar. We want people to have the least amount of barriers, so do the thing that comes easiest. And oftentimes it's at end of life. Is your furnace going out? Perfect opportunity to replace it with heat pump technology. Is your water heater going out? Perfect opportunity to replace it with heat pump technology. Are you interested in trying out induction? You don't even have to replace your range. Just get a cooktop that can go on your counter. There's single hob cooktops that can do about 80 to 90% of our meals very easily without a lot of pain or disruption to your normal day-to-day activities. It's already there. It's on your countertop. There's really, really easy ways to get the process started. And then once you start building habits, the bigger things can become easier. Is it time for you to think about getting a new vehicle? Great time to think about going electric. What is your commute like? Is it actually better to get an e-bike instead? So there's so many points at which we can make decisions around electrifying, and it's different for every individual and it's different for every family. So those decisions can be really personal. But again, because there's rebates, maybe it's becoming a lot easier for folks to make those decisions now rather than later.
And then, of course, Jenny, there's insulation, right?
Insulation and air sealing is a thing that keeps the heat from leaking out of your house, or if it's hot outside, it keeps the heat from leaking into your house. And it's really important. It increases efficiency. So efficiency is important. We talk about like heat pumps and all these other things that use less electricity, but an important way to do that is also to insulate your house and air seal it. And that's something that if you hire somebody outside to do it, especially a retrofit, it's going to be probably expensive because there's a lot of labor. But it's really cheap to do it yourself, and you can just do it a weekend here or a weekend there, and it adds up. You don't have to do it all at once. The materials are really cheap. You can just buy tubes of spray foam, and it's something you can work at over time, and that reduces the amount of electricity that you use, or if you're still on gas, it reduces the amount of gas you're using, and those are good things.
Lauren, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, very easy. We did a video series with Energy Upgrade California to talk about those easy weekend DIY things you can do to increase efficiency in your house. You know, putting piping around your windows to make sure that they're not leaking, changing your air filters, working with your energy vampires. There's a lot of information out there around those simple things that you can do immediately to make change. So I would agree with Jenny.
Great. Now, you talked about the heat pump. I understand that heat pump water heater is 400% more efficient.
Heat pumps are super efficient. According to MIT's technology review, heat pumps use 65% less electricity than a regular electric appliance. In fact, heat pumps put out 3 to 4 times as much heat as they use in electricity. That's an efficiency of 300 to 400%.
Lauren, rebates. I've heard that word a couple times. What are the rebates for heat pumps?
I think now is the best time in history that I have seen. When I did my heat pump install, there were not rebates available for me. So if I can send the listeners to theswitchison.org to find rebates in your area. There's also some listed through Central Coast Community Energy. There's wonderful upgrades for San Benito, Monterey, and Santa Cruz counties right now through Central Coast Community Energy. The local community choice aggregators are offering rebates. They're also a clean, renewable energy source. It's one of the other things that everyone should be checking the box on, making sure you're on CCA energy.
Can I interrupt you for a second? Are you
Yes.
touching your table at all because we hear the bonking?
Yes, I was being very expressive with my hands just then. I will stop doing that. So I will tuck my hands away and still try to be really expressive. I
Good.
believe that the CCAs are such a huge partner in our electrification journey, and the rebates that they're offering are tremendous right now. Heat pump and cooling systems are upwards of $2,500. The panel upgrades I mentioned earlier is another $2,000. And then everything through Switches On that is state and federal that you can potentially stack on to those local rebates makes a huge difference. So please check out Switches On, check out Central Coast Community Energy to see what rebates are available for you.
And I understand, Jenny, there is the Federal Energy Star ratings,
And if-
energystar.gov.
Right. Those will give you the rating, how energy efficient an appliance is. And if you do a heat pump water heater replacement, normally people do that without getting a permit, and the county, the city, I don't know, they don't mind that much. But if you want the rebate, you need to get a permit.
Right,
So I thought I'd throw that in.
right, right, of course.
I would argue that the city probably does care if you're getting a permit because it's revenue for them.
Oh, I was actually talking to the county, not the city, and they told me they didn't care. They're only charging like $35 or something. It was really low for a water
Fantastic.
heater.
What other rebates for electrifying a house are there?
There's rebates for electric vehicles. You can get rebates for chargers. You can get rebates for induction, both cooktops and ranges. The panel upgrades, like I mentioned, heat pump water heaters, heat pumps, there are rebates for literally everything right now.
I have a question for you, Lauren. My rental, I mentioned the last two things are the gas stoves, but I had to get a bid to get 220 to the two kitchens. And the bid without the stoves just to run the line to the 2 kitchens was $5,000, which is
From the electrician?
Yeah. And I was like, are there rebates for that?
The only thing around the work to get prepared to do electrification that I know of for rebates is the panel upgrade.
Yeah.
If you need to do electrical upgrades internally, you're going to have to pay an electrician to do that, or do it DIY, but I don't recommend that for the good majority of folks, just based on the skill level needed. So that is an added cost for sure.
Yeah, thanks.
Both of you are women. I can hear that. And did you encounter any interaction with your advisors, electricians, compared to what men would encounter?
My electrician who did the rental was really great, so I did not encounter that. But I deal with contractors pretty regularly, and sometimes they just don't want to talk to me. So I bring along a friend who's male, bring along a man, and then I ask questions, and the contractor will tell my friend what the answer is. So that works for me.
What about you, Lauren?
It's horrible that we have to have that workaround, Jenny. I just think that that's atrocious. But it's true. There's been numerous situations in our electrification journey where I'm managing the communications and asking the questions and have the professional work experience to back my questions up, and they still look at my husband or answer questions to my husband. So it is a horrible gender stereotype thing that we experience, and it's just another barrier. But women are the consumers. We're the purchasers in households. We're the planners in households, 9 times out of 10 in partnered relationships. And it's just going to keep going. So hopefully these contractors take us seriously, because it's time for these changes to be happening. And interestingly, my electrician was also lovely. I never had a problem with my electrician, but my heat pump water heater install, there was definitely those moments. Anytime I go to hardware store and I'm asking questions of folks in the hardware store, they're still looking at my husband. So it's a thing.
Maybe it's time to train your male friend and your husband, Lauren, to have them then talk to the electrician or whoever is helping, saying, well, I think you need to talk to her because she knows more than I do.
Oh, he does. My husband is wonderful in that way. He's definitely put people in their place for that.
Perfect. Jovan mentioned a couple of great websites, EnergyStar.gov, theswitchison.org, eco2, the number 2, eco2waterheater.com/product/info. If you want to contact Lauren, she can be reached at, go ahead, Lauren.
Acterra.org, ACTERRA.org, or my email is Lauren, LAUREN .Weston, WESTON @Acterra.org, ACTERRA.org.
We have a few minutes, really just a few minutes, for both of you to give your final thoughts. And Lauren, you want to start?
I think, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to speak today, because more opportunities like this means that more people are hearing about this movement and making it more and more possible for these changes to be made. It's incredibly critical for our survival as a human race, as Jennie put it earlier. We need to make these changes to be able to thrive and survive what's coming. And for my children and future generations, it's going to be incredibly important. So thank you for taking the time to learn and to plan and to make changes as necessary.
I totally agree. I wanted to add something that we haven't talked about, and that's the health risks of gas stoves. We're talking about natural gas or methane. Gas appliances emit nitrogen dioxide, fine particulates, carbon monoxide, benzene, which is a carcinogen, other toxins. There are other reasons besides climate change to get rid of your gas stove. Gas stoves account for about 13% of cases of childhood asthma nationwide and increase the risk of respiratory illness generally by about 20%. The fine spray of particles is basically smoke coming from burning gas, is associated with an increased risk of dementia, and the benzene is associated with blood cancers like leukemia. So get rid of your gas stove if you can. And I'm so glad that we had this show and people can learn something. Thank you, Lauren and Matilda.
And thank you, Lauren and Jennie, for being here on Exploring Santa Cruz, because both of you gave me some wonderful information. Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you so much.
And thank you, Jennie.
Thank you.